This is Gwar is the penultimate documentary about the band Gwar. Not just this is a band that's beyond metal. The things they talk about are actually envisioned on screen. If you've ever seen Gwar in concert, you know to dress in clothes that you may not care about after. Yes, I have seen Gwar in concert. I saw Gwar in at a theater in downtown San Diego during San Diego Comic-Con. And I knew I'm like, I'm just going to wear this jacket because I don't care if something gets on it, which is bound to happen if you've ever seen Gwar. But the documentary is, well, we're going to find out because we have the director, Scott Barber, here with us and producer Tommy Avallone.
Hello.
fresh off the I Love You, I Hate Me tour. We talked to you last week. That's great.
Yeah, I'm just going to stick around and I'll be here next week.
And hopefully we'll see if some of the Gwar will be joining us. I know you listed Mike Derks, Brad Roberts, and Mike Bishop may join the stream. So I have them listed in our Chiron here. But to get started, Tommy, you've been on the show. How did this whole project come together?
I mean, I've known Scott since the Orange Years, and Orange Years was something that I kind of watched happen from afar and was a big fan. And when Scott said his next movie is about Gwar, I was like, let's do that. That sounds fantastic. Because me personally, I didn't know much about Gwar besides it being on Beavis and Butthead or, Bam's show or, Empire Records. So I was like, I would love to know more about this. So instead of like waiting to watch it finished, we just kind of did it together. And Scott really did everything. I kind of was there just to support.
I'm playing a little magical chairs with this. And Scott, I realize I've interviewed you before, right?
Yeah. Me and Adam were on for the Orange Years, which is the Nickelodeon documentary.
That documentary is so good, goes into so much depth, and gave me such a newfound appreciation. I mean, Nickelodeon was huge. I mean, that was huge. I mean, my kids watched Nickelodeon, but it was like one of the few. I couldn't watch Disney Channel. I just thought that, I don't know, just didn't appeal to me.
Yeah.
Nickelodeon, there was something about the attitude and the way that kids were respected. If you've not I know we're going to talk about your Gwar documentary, but just to give a plug for Orange Years, which I know is out on VOD, right?
It's on Hulu as well.
Oh, it's on Hulu. So that doc, what I really loved was learning what the philosophy was of the executives of like, this is how we're going to treat children. And it was like, we're going to talk to kids at a kid level. And it kind of like and look, I'm an adult. I'm watching Nick, right? And then there was that Nick at Night. It's such a groundbreaking thing for its time. Before we talk about Gwar, just a little bit about the Orange Years.
Yeah. And it's funny because people are like, Nickelodeon and then Gwar, like what's the thing? And besides getting
slime.
Yeah, slime. Yeah. Well, a lot of the promos for Nickelodeon, I've got green slime. And then for Gwar, it's like red, blue, and green. But, Nickelodeon, what made me and Adam really want to do that was it did have Nickelodeon back in the day had a very punk rock ethos. Like it was very much screw what's going on in the mainstream. We're going to do this our own way. And everybody told them no. It was led by a wonderful lady named Geraldine Laybourne who, was behind the scenes. So a lot of people don't necessarily know her name or her face. And we want to get that out there because she was a teacher and a female, back in, this is the late 70s, early 80s. And everyone was like, that's not going to work. This cable thing is a fad. That's not, people are only going to watch, NBC, ABC, CBS. And, they proved them wrong. And there's all these amazing shows, Pete and Pete, Are You Afraid of the Dark, that they hold up to this very day.
You pivot. The connection is slime.
Yeah.
Or blood, gore, green slime.
Something. Liquids. Yeah.
I mean, between me and Scott, we pretty much have children's programming covered. I did the Barney doc. He's got Nickelodeon. We're good.
Exactly. There you go.
And Tommy's too. It's people in costumes, people in monsterish type costumes.
Yeah. I was actually going to change my Barney background to the T-Rex I have painted purple, just for Gwar, but I didn't have enough time.
Now, so we have a lot of questions in the chat, and we'll get to the chat questions. But what led you down the pathway to pivot from Orange Years to Gwar?
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking of what to do next, and I always kind of keep a Google Doc of what would make a cool documentary. And sometimes just something pops into my head, and then I do a little more research to see if it warrants a documentary, you know, if there's actually a story there. And with Gwar, I was like, oh my God, these guys' story basically is a movie. Like, if I got to do that doc, all I would have to do is just not mess it up. So randomly at the time, my friend Rocky Moon, who is in a great band called American Sharks, everyone should check them out. They opened up for Gwar. So I was like, oh, this is perfect. I want to do a Gwar documentary. He got really close to them. And so I was like, pitch me to them, you know, and he did. And I had a couple of talks with them, and they were a little shy at first because, as you can imagine, a bunch of people have approached them over the years to do projects and kind of want them to do all the work. You know, the way they put it is people would point a camera at them and go, okay, be crazy, you know, and would want them to do everything. And so eventually I won them over, and I'm really glad that we got to work together on the documentary.
One thing that amazes me about the documentary is just the amount of footage you have. I mean,
yes.
The footage goes all the way back to the beginnings in 1985. Was that, I mean, who got this? Was it easy to get? And could you have made the movie without this footage?
I think that the movie would have been very different, you know. And, you know, when you do a documentary, you kind of have your story, at least the way I do it, you know, you have your story, but then you have to let it go wherever it wants to go. And we had all these crazy ideas, editing, how are we going to do it? Mixture of cinema verite with interviews, and are we going to move backwards in time? And as we did the interviews, we kind of realized the movie is just letting these guys talk. We don't need to be fancy in the editing. The way I kind of liken it to Michael Anthony in Van Halen, you know, everyone goes, all he does is just go, do, 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 do. But, you know, you got to have that so that the Van Halen brothers can do their crazy stuff. If everybody's going crazy, it's going to be lame, you know? So when we found the interviews, and then once we found all that archival, we're like, that's the movie. Nothing is going to be better than just showing this amazing archival footage with these guys just bearing their soul. You know, these people that have lived an unreal life, being so vulnerable and candid, and not what you would expect. They're not the people you would expect behind that mask. But I got to give props. That's all Bob Gorman. He is Bone Snapper, and he's been in Gwar since like 1985, 86. And he kind of considers them the historian. And he's just collected every flyer of every Gwar show, you know, and because they are a multimedia project, you know, they make movies, they make comics, they make all this stuff. They were filming nonstop. So we found like, oh my God, everything that they say, there's a video to show that story. So yeah, to get to sit at the Gwar headquarters and just go through boxes and boxes of VHS and transferring them all was a dream come true. You know, I'm an 80s kid. I love VHS. I love all those old forms of some of their stuff was even on beta. Just getting to transfer it over was a dream come true.
Let's go. We got so many comments and questions. It's kind of out of control. I'll get to as many as I can. But Dempsey says, I hope you know this means Gwar. Dude B says, R.I.P. Brockie. The film philosopher says Gwar turns it up to 11.
True.
Speaking of Brockie, I mean, the film is pretty much, I think it's the skeleton of the film is Dave Brockie himself as Odorous. Can you talk a little bit about him?
Yeah, I mean, he's a force of nature, you know, like that's kind of the way that from talking with the Gwar people, because we never met him, you know, he passed years before we started this. Yeah, I mean, he's a force of nature, and you take the good and the bad with that. You know, he's to put it bluntly, he's one of the greatest frontmen that have ever lived. There's very few people in this world that have a brain and the charisma that he had, you know, and he had an element of danger to him. That's what Casey Orr says in there, an element of danger to him all the time. You never know what's going to happen, good and bad with that, more good than bad. But, you know, and we really paint the whole documentary. You hear different stories from different people's point of view, you know, and we wanted to kind of leave it up to the viewer. What do you believe, you know? And so that was one thing you hear, you know, there's a lot of infighting in the documentary because both Gwar and we wanted it to feel real and not like a Gwar commercial. Basically, I hope everyone walks away from the documentary going, damn, Gwar's fucking awesome. They're even cooler than I thought they were, but we knew it had to feel real. Mm-hmm. But Dave not being alive, we had to I was very nervous the whole time of like, how do we make sure his side gets told, even though we're not here? So we just made sure anytime something about Brockie that could be taken at all negatively, we had to balance it out with two things that were good.
I mean, that's the beautiful thing with archival footage is like, these people can stay alive and be present in the documentary, even though they passed away. Just a heads up, the band did say that one of their trailers broke down this morning, so they're hoping to come in soon.
Cool. Well, let's get to some more questions and comments here. True Citizen Zero said, we went to Denny's after the Gwar show. We got a lot of cheers. And then it's Greasy Vop, who's a member, says, I saw Gwar in 98 and they did some crazy things that would get them canceled nowadays. Did you have to censor their edginess?
We really didn't. And that was one thing that we struggled with because we didn't want to get them canceled, because they kind of operate in their sphere. And now we're hopefully introducing them to new people. And we didn't want it to be recontextualized. And the way that we kind of frame it in the documentary and we frame it in press is that, yes, they do edgy, weird, bad, offensive things, but it's more like, I would say like Cartman from South Park or Michael Scott from The Office. So they're saying that this stuff is bad. They're not saying that the stuff that they're doing is cool. You're supposed to look at Cartman. You don't think that he's awesome and want to be like him. You go, what an idiot, or Michael Scott, particularly in the early episodes of The Office. You're not supposed to think he's cool. You think he's bad, and that's essentially Gwar in a weird way is woke. They've always spoken out against sexism and racism and war and, for climate change. That's the whole thing, that whenever humans destroy the ozone layer, that's what thawed Gwar out and now has brought the end of humanity. So it was something that we had to think about, but we're like, they do these edgy things to show that stuff is bad, essentially.
Well, I never felt that Gwar was like lecturing, though. It's like
exactly
the messages may have been there, but I think they were committed to entertaining the audience primarily, first and foremost. Horror Punk says, I was at the show in Cleveland with Gwar Mushroom Head that Jerry Springer filmed for one of his shows, and Gwar fed him to the galactic worm. One of the funniest shows I ever went to, which is awesome. Brian Landis says, I have to imagine that some of your camera equipment got stained from filming Gwar. Is that true?
Yeah. And I actually, I have a tripod. I had a silver tripod that I use that has blood all over it. And I'm not going to it's just a souvenir. I'm not ever going to wash it. I keep it in my office. Just here's the bloody tripod. But surprisingly, I used a lot of the small cameras, the Sony mirrorless cameras and DSLRs to get right up front. And all I did was I put a bag over it, like a plastic bag, and they still work. So they lived.
Let's see. I think right from the trailer, Michael Bishop is here. Hey, what's going on? Oh, and if you guys are in the same space, it might not work. We'll get some feedback on the audio. So let's see if we can. Michael, we have you here.
You can also share the camera if you want.
Yeah, you guys could share the camera if you're in the same area. Otherwise, you'll get. But good to see you, sir. What are your thoughts now that the Gwar documentary is out and available for all to see? How do you feel about this?
I love it. I mean, I'm really happy that this thing came out. I mean, it's exactly what the band needed, and it's what we always wanted from a documentary. It tells the story, what to me has always been the most interesting story of Gwar, is the story of how it is this unique thing that is about art and music and commitment to one another, and that's the narrative that Scott put on film, and it's we're just really lucky that that we got him to do it, because we were approached by a number of times about doing a documentary. Everybody usually wanted to tell the story about I don't know, just either make the band look sort of really weird or or just we definitely didn't want something to be sort of just the story of Dave Brockie, or just the story of a kind of a hagiography that didn't have any sort of critical look at the band. And that's not what Scott did. He did really the best thing that a person can do when they're a documentarian, which is he looked at it, he found a narrative that told us, that told the story that reflects on the band, and made a great film.
we've got a lot of comments and questions here. Would you mind going through some of the? I don't know if you can answer all these questions, but we'll do our best. For or against us says, I learned about Gwar from the Beavis and Butthead Sega Genesis game. Brock Samsonite says, it's like a real life Spinal Tap, but more intelligent. So, and what's it like? Scott says, what's it like looking behind the meat curtain, so to speak?
Jeez. How do you answer that question? Behind the meat curtain. What's there?
Well,
it's just a black hole.
Brock Samsonite goes on as, please tell me you cover the costume creations and backstories. Is that a part of the doc?
I mean, there's a lot of shots of. I think maybe Scott would answer that one. There's a lot of shots of the process, and what goes on during the show, but it doesn't focus on that too much. There's too much to focus on to really. I can't believe it got made at all. There's so much to focus on.
Yeah. Any comments on that, Scott or Tommy?
There is some stuff about that, and that was one thing. I mean, I really wish this could be a series, but as we were doing it, we're like, these folks' story is the human side is the draw. This is what's going to be. Would it be cool to see how the ball sack, the jaws of death boots work? Yes, that's really cool. It's like magic, but it's way more interesting to hear this insane story of the lives that these people have lived and to get to know them and fall in love with them, each character. So yeah, I guess I would echo Bishop. Yeah, a little bit.
Well, I would say the first half of the movie is about Dave and Hunter. And Hunter was like, I guess, the mastermind behind a lot of the costumes and the effects that were going on in the show.
Yeah.
Douchey McDouche X says, hail the scum dogs of the universe. And there you go. And then question here, Lubitsch Touch Me says, do you like Gwar? Do you like that Gwar will live on past all the original members like Dave and Vision?
I actually don't. I've heard people say that a lot. I like that, the idea, but I think that he might be asking, do you feel like Gwar will, or do I believe it? I actually don't. I think that it can survive the loss of musicians. What it can't survive is the loss of artists, right? Because those guys are really hard to replace. And ultimately, I think that the Bob Gorman, Matt McGuire, when those guys stop wanting to do this, I don't know that it'll continue on, just because it's really hard to replace them. I mean, we keep trying to get new artists to come in, but one of the things that this story is about is that commitment to one another, right? That's the thing that you can't replace. You can get people who can make stuff, but you can't replace that sort of willingness to sacrifice and commitment to one another to do this thing. That's what's hard to find. So, yeah.
Solomon Thornton says, I just got one thing to say. You rock. The film philosopher says Gwar is eternal. And then also, will Gwar retirement ever happen? Hope not.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't see myself being Mick Jagger's age and strutting around in the blowtorch costume, but I hope so. I mean.
Another question here: whose job is it to clean the masks and costumes? Asks Ryan Landis.
That's the poor suck slave. I don't know. I mean,
hey Chris, I just want to add too, like the movie right now is on Shudder, but what's great about the DVD release coming out in a couple days is there's all these extra special features and extra stories that didn't make it into the movie. Scott, I actually forget, what are the other things that are in the DVD?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, because one of them is behind the scenes at a Gwar concert, where we follow Bob and Matt as well as the musicians around to show how they set everything up, and you do get to see how some of the stuff is made. They kind of walk through that. And then there's also just extended interviews that didn't make it in there, or longer interviews. And then, I mean, the real thing that people are really going to want to see is it's an interview with Dave that's never been out there before, and it's incredible.
And also extended Ethan Umbre about Empire Records.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A comment
God bless
here.
physical media.
Yes, I'm a big fan of Blu-ray. I've produced a bunch of them and working on my own film right now. Like that to me is like it's not just the movie, it's the experience,
Yeah.
right? Ryan Landis says, here's my future Gwar pitch, full-length animated movie.
Well, full-length movie, yes. I don't know about animated. Animated would be great, but you know, and it would allow us to do some of the crazier stuff that we, you know, maybe. And we've always been a huge fan of like heavy metal movies and all those, you know, I mean, maybe sort of a combination would be good, you know.
Well, when you see like Metalocalypse, I don't know if you ever heard of the show Metalocalypse. I feel Metalocalypse was inspired by Gwar. Am I wrong?
Way.
Yeah, quite a bit. I mean, I know John Schnepp, one of the directors, and he designed the characters for Metalocalypse, and it had like a Gwar vibe. Jizmek is joining us right underneath you, Michael. That's the name you chose. How's it going?
Well, you know, we're breaking the fourth wall here and talking about our documentary. It's going pretty good. We're loading into a venue now in Cincinnati, so I figured they could actually see the human face behind Jizmak. So I typed in Jizmak.
That's awesome.
And let's do it.
Great. True Citizen Zero, who's seen the doc, says the animations in the doc were really good too, especially the shooting story. So,
yeah, I agree. That was something, you know, like you had mentioned before, all of the, we had so much amazing B-roll from the archival footage to help show what these guys were talking about. But there are certain things like, yeah, Pete getting shot, there's no footage of it, but you need to see it. So we were like, how do we do that? But how do we also do it and not feel like we're cheating? What's a style of animation that would work with Gwar and feel like it was not just a crutch? And so we went, with that kind of old Jack Kirby style comic book.
so you have a show tonight.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet. Oh my
Out on
gosh.
tour, Black Death Rager Tour. We're out here doing it until November 3rd.
And the film
What's your favorite city to play?
No. Venue or city?
City.
You know, that's a tough one. We have definitely markets overseas and here in America that are really, really good. The fans are crazy and the shows are always packed. But, you know, doing it this long, for me now, it's the new city where we haven't played. Usually is the big one because it's something new, and we get to bring Gwar to people who haven't seen it before. That's really the most exciting.
Yeah,
Are the shows
that's
more
better.
toned down now than they were in the late 80s, I should say?
Oh, absolutely not. The shows are way more overblown. There's more gallons of fluids flying than ever before.
Oh my God. The film philosopher asks, question, what's the origin of Gwar and the philosophy behind them? I think the doc answers that question. You really need to see the doc. And the Blu-ray, did you say it's out today, Tommy, or in a couple days?
October 25th, right, Scott?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's on Shudder and AMC Plus.
Yeah, Shudder and AMC Plus already. And then, the DVD and all the TVOD, like the iTunes, Amazon, all that is October 25th.
And then
Nice. 4 more days.
4 more days. I just what can we expect on the Blu-ray? Because I know we can see it on Shudder. I love Shudder. If you're a horror fan, Shudder is great. But
it's great.
I love it.
Loving it.
Yeah,
Loving having it.
Yeah, you should see a movie. You may have heard of it. It's a Taiwan zombie movie called The Sadness. It's so good. Check out The Sadness. It's definitely something that I think you would enjoy. But what can we expect on the Blu-ray?
Yeah, I mean, we've got extended clips. Like we were kind of saying, there's tons of interviews that didn't make it on there, as well as interviews that are on there, but just longer versions. There's the last interview with Dave Brockie, which is, I mean, you have to see that. That's like the crowning thing on it. And then there's, like Tommy was mentioning, we got Ethan Embry to talk about how Gwar got into Empire Records and what that was like. And then, behind the scenes at a Gwar show where we go show all that these guys do to to put on a show. It's not anything like any sort of regular concert at all. It's 100 times as much effort that they put into it.
And and extended interviews from like the Alex Winters or
Yeah.
Ray Margera's, Weird Al, Thomas Lennon, MC Chris, all that sort of fun stuff. For all these people we got to see briefly in the movie, now a little bit more extended.
Yeah.
A question here from Danger UXO: has a venue ever not known what they're getting into with a Gwar show?
Absolutely. I mean,
Oh yeah.
I always remember the time we played a church in Wales on the first, the first time we went to England, and it was one of the few gigs that didn't get canceled because it was in Wales, and this British member of Parliament had been sort of going around like yanking everybody's licenses that was going to let us play. So we go down there and do the show, and it's in a church that has a blonde wood floor, like this really hundreds of years old. And I mean, I felt bad just even doing the show. But then afterwards, the guy comes out wearing like rubber boots. He's like this Welshman. He's got a mop. And he's like, "Here you go, guys." And they're like, "That's not how it works. Bye."
Cool. And then a good question to end on here. Dempsey says, if you had to pick a favorite song, Gwar song, which would you all pick? Is there a favorite?
Songs is what would happen. We would all pick a different song.
Yeah, and then we'd fight about it, and then the whole thing would never get made. No, I think I love the song Sonder Commando. I think that's a good Gwar song. And then we're playing one, Space Cake, that I love. Brad's always said, correct me if I'm wrong, Brad, you say Horror of Yig is kind of like the perfect Gwar song.
I always thought Horror of Yig was kind of the quintessential sound of Gwar. Like when I got in the band, they had written that song, but then we, with me coming in, we changed it a little bit, and it just has all the parts that feel and sound like Gwar to me. It's tribal, it's dark, it's it's fast, it's slow, it's got like pretty much everything in it.
It's good, it sucks, it's all there.
Got everything.
Well, I want to thank you all for coming on the Film Threat Livecast today. It's on Shudder now. This is Gwar. Blu-ray is out. And where can you get it, Tommy?
I believe it's just Amazon, anywhere you can get DVDs. I know the band, you guys have it on tour as well, right? Are you guys bringing it? Yeah. So anywhere you get DVDs.
I think we have DVDs. Do we have DVDs we're selling?
I don't know if it's here yet. I don't know if we have a shipment of those. I think it's coming.
Yeah, I think you can pre-order them. I think I saw a sign out there where you can pre-order them.
Blockbuster.
And then,
Everybody go to Blockbuster.
Everybody go to Blockbuster and get it.
Definitely Gwar.net. If you want Gwar.net place to go to find out any information or where stuff's at. So.
All right, so check that out. I want to say thank you to all of you, and so great to have you on again. To have Gwar here, I've gotten blood on me. I have seen you live in San Diego. It's just like it's an event. It's not just a musical performance. Anyone who's seen Gwar live. And Tommy, always great to talk to you. Scott, thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Again on the new film, and take care. Have a great show tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks
Bye,
a lot.
everyone.
Later. Oh man. Take care, Scott.
Great.
That was great. They're awesome. Wait,
Yeah,
Scott
so
wants to come back. Wait, Scott, you have something else to say?
No, that's it.
You were waving. Okay.
I'll say bye.
Just
Bye,
great.
thanks,
And also Orange Years, another recommendation. Orange Years on Hulu. And congrats on that movie. Awesome film.
Thanks so much, Chris.
Cool.
Bye, y'all.
Take care. Come back when you have another doc.
I will. Thank you.
Later. That's great.
So you can buy it on their website. This is Gwar.net, and I believe Amazon has it as well.
Sweet.